Ritter, you're in the second hardest hit areas for COVID-19. So how are things there?
We have about 95,000 confirmed cases, and of those, about a little over 5,000 deaths. So it's a serious situation, and it's to be taken seriously.
And how are people in the community reacting? We just saw the middle of, I think it was not Times Square, but outside the WABC studios there in New York City. Pretty quiet for 7:30 on a evening there in New York City. So what is it like there in New Jersey?
So I'm in very rural New Jersey. I'm in northwestern New Jersey. I'm up in the mountains. I know people react differently depending on where they are. But, like I said, I am a voice actor, so that part of my profession has kind of remained untouched. I usually work at home, so I'm still at home. The difference was those 3 weeks when I was really at my sickest. So I was reacting by just being inside and trying to recover.
Okay, so you did test positive for coronavirus, or were you able to get a test?
At first, I was getting really sick, and I saw my doctor, and we weren't sure what it was. He seemed to think it was the flu, and we started to treat me for that. When I was not getting better, it was the decision to go in another direction. Then I went to the hospital, and I was tested, and a day later, I got the test back that I was positive.
Okay, so how long ago was that, and how are you doing right now?
I first started to feel the symptoms on the 15th of March, and about 4 days after that, I went to go see my doctor. So that's when I started to get treated for the flu. About a week later, my whole situation was deteriorating. I was getting worse and worse. My family was very nervous. My wife was nervous for how I was doing. So we went to the hospital. So I guess that was about a week and a half of symptoms before I went to the hospital and got tested. Once I got tested and got the positive results, then I was on a whole new set of medications. And I would say that was about a week before things started to turn around for the better.
You mentioned that you were being treated originally for the flu. Can you compare the symptoms between the two?
I've never had the flu, but it sounds pretty
you're
awful.
Lucky.
Yeah, but so I guess whatever symptoms I had, which was bodily aching, some feverish symptoms, a little bit of nausea, those were things that I guess because they couldn't test for COVID-19 in a local doctor's office, and some of the symptoms did seem flu-like. They did do a flu test there in the office, and after that, I was told that those flu tests aren't always accurate, but what we could do, we had to do what we could. So what we did was treat me for the flu, monitor the symptoms, and then I was told in 5 days, if I'm not a lot better, then we need to go in a new direction.
Okay, and you mentioned that your symptoms and your condition started to deteriorate quite quickly after that. So what was that like for you? What was your experience with all of this? And were you ever at some point afraid for your life?
Yes. One of the worst symptoms was this heaviness of breathing, this very labored breathing with a strong discomfort that came with it. It wasn't pain. I wouldn't call it pain. But when you tried to breathe, there was this heavy tightness that it gave me a lot of anxiety. I was afraid at night. My sleeping was terrible. And I mean, anytime you have any condition that you pile on top of it, no rest, it just gets worse. So that was one of the main symptoms, was my breathing was getting worse and worse. If I just stood up off of the couch, I was out of breath. If I tried to walk from the living room to the kitchen, I was panting for air for 5 minutes after that. So it was a very unusual and scary feeling.
Wow. Was there anything that seemed to be helpful to easing your pain? I've heard something called prone positioning when it came to helping breathe and get through all of that with those difficulties. So was there anything that was helpful for you that you'd like to pass on to anybody else who may be dealing with this right now as well?
Yes. I was on the couch being separated from my wife for a good 2 weeks or so. And on the couch, I was trying different things to prop myself up with pillows in different places. What I found was when I was on my back, it was the worst. Breathing was the worst. That was when I was coughing the most. If I laid on my side, it seemed to ease it a little bit. So I would say if you're going to try something, if you're trying anything to get some relief, try moving on your side, see if that works for you.
Okay. Any other advice you'd like to give to our viewers tonight?
please listen to your local officials, listen to the people that are giving you instructions about social distancing. I know some people kind of get the feeling like you should just get the virus because then you work through it and blah, blah, blah. It's not that easy. And I honestly, too many people are not coming out of this thing. My own family doctor that treated our family for 30 plus years, was 62 years old, stayed on the front lines to help people who needed it, even though he knew he was at risk, just passed away just Saturday, and it was only 11 days. This was a doctor, and it was only 11 days after he tested positive, so he did not survive this. So I would just say, please take it seriously and do whatever you can.
Wow, I'm so sorry to hear that. Well, we are wishing you all the best. Thank you, George, for joining us. We do have to take a quick break.
Thanks again for having me.